So, let's talk about something that's quietly shaking up the business world: forecasting. The old playbooks? They're getting tossed out, and a totally new strategy is taking over, one that looks outside a company's own walls to figure out what's coming next.
It really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, companies are swimming in data. Every sale, every click, every single customer interaction, it's all logged. And yet so many predictions just completely miss the mark. So what is going on here?
All right, let's dive right in. The heart of the problem is something you could call the forecasting blind spot. It's this fundamental flaw in how we've all been taught to think about the future. And it all boils down to one thing: being way too reliant on the past.
Think about it like this. In the kind of crazy volatile economy we live in now, trying to predict what's ahead using only your own past sales data, well, that's like trying to drive a car down a busy highway by looking only in the rearview mirror. It's not just a bad idea, it's genuinely dangerous.
And this right here is the absolute key. The world we're in now just plays by a different set of rules. You know, the steady, predictable rhythms of the past have been totally thrown off by inflation, wild weather events, and these constant shifts in global trade. Assuming next year is going to look just like last year, that is now the fastest way to get left in the dust.
So this obsession with the past leads us straight to the real villain of our story: getting trapped by our own internal data. Companies have spent, decades building these perfect internal systems, but in the process, they've accidentally created an echo chamber.
And check this out. This shows you just how big that blind spot is. Your own data, your pricing, your marketing campaigns, your sales history, all that stuff can only explain about half of what's actually happening to your business. The other 50%, it's being driven by the outside world. So if you're only looking inward, you are literally missing half the picture.
And what this leads to is a super painful, very real situation that I bet a lot of people in business know all too well. It's the Monday morning problem. You walk into that big meeting, the forecast was wrong, again, your inventory levels are a total mess, and the board is looking at you asking why. And the honest, frustrating answer is, you don't.
So if looking inward is the problem, it stands to reason that the solution has to be looking outward, right? It's all about learning how to listen to these external signals and finding that hidden why that's buried in the just massive amount of data the world is generating every single day.
So the new game plan is to completely flip the script. Instead of just analyzing your own pipeline over and over, you connect your business to the thousands of data streams that are flowing from the global economy. You basically funnel all of that noise down to find the few crystal clear predictive signals that actually matter to you.
And when we talk about signals, we're not talking about some abstract idea. We mean hard data. Things like economic indicators, the consumer price index, inflation rates, labor stats for specific sectors, super granular weather data, or even things that measure broad consumer confidence.
And there's a really clear process to turn all this raw data into actual insight. First, you ingest just thousands of these global signals. Then, you use some smart tech to discover which of those signals actually predict what's going to happen in your business. Step 3, governance, is absolutely critical. That's where you filter out all the noise. And then finally, you feed only those proven, validated signals into your models.
Okay, so this brings us to what might be the single most important technical concept in this whole approach. To get this right, you absolutely have to understand the huge difference between causality and simple correlation. They are not the same thing.
This classic example explains it perfectly. So it's a fact that ice cream sales are highly correlated with shark attacks. A simplistic model might actually think that one causes the other, but that's just a dangerous coincidence. The reality, of course, is that a third factor, hot summer weather, is the true cause of both. The whole point is not to find these weird coincidences. It's to find the real, underlying driver.
And that leads to a crucial point. This is not about handing everything over to some black box algorithm and just hoping for the best. You can think of AI as this incredibly powerful engine that can test millions of connections, but you need expert human governance to act as the steering wheel, making sure every signal that goes in passes a basic, common-sense business logic test.
Okay, so that's all the theory. But what does this actually look like in the real world? Well, let's get into a really fascinating case study that involves a CPG brand and their popular sports drink.
So here was the problem.
This major brand was trying to forecast demand for their sports drink, but their models were just stuck. Even with all their internal data, all the info on pricing, promotions, everything, they could only explain about 24% of why their sales went up or down. They were missing a whopping 76% of the story.
Now just look at this transformation. After they applied this external signal approach, the explanatory power of their model just went through the roof. What data scientists call R-squared, which is basically a score for how well your model explains what's happening, it jumped from a really weak 24% all the way up to 78%. They literally went from guessing to actually understanding their market.
So what was it? What was the one magic signal that changed everything? Well, it wasn't something obvious like weather or a competitor's marketing campaign. Get this, it was a 6-month lagging indicator in consumer credit data. It turns out when consumer credit gets tight, people eventually switch to cheaper drinks. But that change in behavior doesn't actually show up at the store for a full 6 months. This one external signal basically let them see the future.
So this is all really cool data science, for sure. But it is not just an academic exercise. This stuff directly hits the bottom line because there's a very real and very high cost to getting your forecast wrong.
I mean, just look at the money involved. For a company doing, say, $50 million in revenue, a tiny 1% improvement in forecast accuracy isn't a small win. It can translate to over $500,000 in margin, money saved from things like wasted inventory or missed sales. We are not talking about small change here.
So we'll just end with this question for you to think about. If your business is still trying to drive forward by only looking backward, what crucial signals are you missing? What is the outside world trying to tell you about your future? And are you listening?